Hello again. I am Oshika, your tutor for basic counseling. And before starting, I would like to apologize for having rescheduled so many sessions. And maybe I will have one more session which I will have to reschedule, but we can discuss about this later. So today we will start with the module which is basic counseling. It's not a difficult module. It's very, very easy to score very good marks in basic counseling. But pareil comme pour every other modules, you need to put in the effort. A good revision is very important. And if you do a good revision and you prepare your topics, you will definitely score a very good mark in basic counseling. So today, along with the first session, I will give you your assignment, which is due for the 1st of May. So I'll give you a full 1 month, full to for your assignment. So I expect a good work from you all, and the assignment is 30% of your total marks for the module. So if you clear the assignment, you will most likely get good grades for the exams. So to start with, so before starting, do you guys have any question, anything that you want to share or talk about?
Uh, uh, Good morning, ma'am. The class is being recorded.
I will start the recording as soon as we start with the class.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, so anything else that you want to, if there's anything that you want to discuss? Okay, so we will start with the class. So if you guys can't see the screen during the session, please let me know. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes, it is clear. I think it's good for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, great then. So, like I was telling you, today we will cover two topics. We have counseling in context, and um, the second one is the counselor in social work. So, according to you, what is counseling? Why do you think counseling is important in this course? Anyone? Have you ever heard of the word counseling? You've never heard of the word counseling?
Yes, we did. I think in the other modules we had, like, we came across counseling. For me personally, counseling is maybe the session when you're a social worker, the session, the exchange between the client and the social worker, where you go with the
Yes,
assessment to provide the services with regards to their requirements and depending on the situations and
exactly.
circumstances.
Yeah, this is good. Your answer is good. So counseling is a purposeful reciprocal relationship between two or more people that in which one is a trained person, be it the counselor or the social worker or a psychologist, and this trained person helps the other person who is the client to change himself or his environment. So, why do we say it's a purposeful reciprocal relationship? Because it is not um, a relationship where there's only one person who's benefiting from it. It's a relationship where both parties benefit from everything that is being discussed, and there is one person who benefit most more as compared to the other one, but the main aim of counseling is to help the person who is in need to change himself or his environment. So there are different characteristics of counseling. Can you see the slides now, or is it stuck on the first slide?
It is stuck on the first one only. We can only see you in unit one council. Okay, I think it's good.
It's good. It's okay now.
Yes, it's okay now.
Okay, so like I was telling you, this is a good definition of counseling. Counseling is a purposeful reciprocal relationship between two or more people in which one is a trained person helping the other to change himself or his environment. And you will find this definition in your manual. You have several definitions, but this is the most appropriate one, which I think fit this. It's better if ever you're given a question on defining counseling, so you can use this definition. So, like I was telling you, there are different characteristics of counseling. And it is important for you to know about the different characteristics of counseling because you are often examined on this. So please make it a must to know about it. And if ever you're given a question, and you should be able to answer about the characteristics of counseling. So, in a counseling, usually there are two individuals. The first one seeking help, that is the counselee or the client, and the second one is a trained professional offering help to the first one, that is the counselor. There has to be mutual respect between the counselor and the counselee. So, can anyone tell me why is mutual respect important in a counseling session? Why should there be respect in a counseling session? Anyone? No one?
I think probably listening on both sides.
Yes. No, my question is why should there be respect? Why should this be considered as one characteristic of counseling?
I think personally, there should be respect firstly to gain the trust of the client and to be
Exactly.
able.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, you may continue, please.
Okay, to gain the trust of the client, for the client to be able to process the situation, maybe the problems the person is in, and so that the counselor can help him or her better in a proper way.
Exactly, yes. Because if you, as a counselee, if you cannot trust your counselor, you will definitely not open up about the situation that you're in, and it will defeat the whole purpose of counseling. And as a counselor, if you're not respected by your client or your counselee, you will not be able in certain situation to uh, confront the client, for instance, to gain as much information as possible to be able to perform your duty as you should. So mutual respect is very important. So it's an important component of counseling. If there's no respect, the counseling session will not be fruitful and it will not help the counselor to overcome the situation that he or she might be in. So, the objective of counseling is to bring desired changes in the counselee or the client for self realization and offering appropriate assistance for problem solving. There's the misconception that if someone goes into counseling, that the counselor will find a solution to the client's problem. I'll use the word client so that you don't confuse between counselee and counselor. So this there's this misconception that a counselor has to provide solution to the client, but this is not the case. For a counseling to be fruitful, the counselor only advises the client. It's the client that has to put in the effort to change his situation. The counselor is here as a guide to help the client realize certain where he or she might be facing problem in certain aspect of their life. The counselor is here to listen to the client and to bring in self realization. The counselor is not here to provide ready made solution because each and every person is different, and the way that we perceive or the way that we go through a problem or any situation, it is different. For you, maybe I'll just take a basic example. Maybe for you, let's just say that not eating chocolate at night is okay, but for some people, they might be dependent on this and they might need a small piece of chocolate to be able to sleep well at night. So your problem and my problems, they might be the same problem, but the way that we experience the problem is different because we are different individuals and we have different limitations and different strengths. So this is why you as a counselor, you cannot give ready-made solution to a client. So other characteristics of counseling is that no ready-made solutions. Solutions are derived from the thinking that the counselee or the client makes by himself. The focus of counseling is on bringing changes within the individual to enable him to be more productive and be more independent in dealing with difficulties. And the last characteristic is that in a counseling session, the main aim is to help the counselee to accept himself or herself. So acceptance of self is very important in counseling. So usually, depending on the counselor or the psychologist where you're going, the best way to identify a professional from someone who is not that professional in the session in the field is when a professional will help a client to identify his or her problem by themselves, and they will focus the session in trying to make the person more independent. That is, when you are in a counseling session, you will be equipped with the skills, necessary skills to, just one moment, please. Did someone raise a hand? Sorry. I'm sorry, the class was not being recorded, so the recording has started. I'm sorry about that. So, like I was telling you, just 1 minute, please. Yeah. So, like I was telling you, when you are in a counseling session, the counselor will equip you with the necessary skills to be able to deal with any similar situation that you're facing in the future. A counselor will help you, will guide you so that next time when you're facing similar issues, you won't have to seek help again. You will be equipped with the skills to be able to overcome the problem by yourself. So this is one of the main aim of counseling, is to help your client to be more independent in dealing with any situation that they might be facing. So these are the main characteristics of counseling. You have 6 in total, and it is important that you know about these 6 characteristics, and there's high chances that you might be examined on these. So there are different theories in counseling, and these different theories has been grouped under 4 main approaches. You have firstly the analytic approaches, the experimental and relationship oriented approaches, the second one. The third one is action therapies, and the fourth one is system perspective. So the first approach pardon, is the analytic approaches. So the analytic approaches lay emphasis on the analysis of personality development, unconscious motivation, and childhood experiences. And under the analytic approaches, you have different therapies. The first therapy is the psychoanalytic therapy by Sigmund Freud. Have you heard about Sigmund Freud? Anyone? Sigmund Freud? Applied psychology?
Semester.
Yeah. So, did you hear about the psychodynamic theory? Sigmund Freud? Id, ego, superego?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you tell me a bit about what exactly you know about the theory? So, okay, I'll just ask you another question. So, what is the id, ego, and superego? No? You don't know? Okay. So, Sigmund Freud, he's a main figure in psychology. He's the father of psychodynamic approach, and his theory was mostly focused on making conscious the unconscious part of our mind. So the main components of his theory are past life. Yeah, you have past experiences, childhood experiences, how childhood experiences affect adult life, and how our unconscious motivation affects our behavior. So psychoanalytic theory, it's similar to the psychodynamic approach, where the emphasis is on making conscious the unconscious thoughts and motivation. And Sigmund Freud argued that by making conscious our unconscious thoughts and motivation, it leads to more insight about our behavior and our thoughts. So, the main objective of the psychoanalytic therapy is to release repressed experiences and emotions. So, another component in the psychoanalytic therapy is defense mechanism. Have you ever heard of the word defense mechanism? Anyone? You've never heard about defense mechanism? Okay, never mind. So, defense mechanism are psychological strategies that are unconsciously used to protect a person from anxiety arising from unacceptable thoughts or feelings. So, the defense mechanism is developed by the ego to protect against any to protect against anxiety. So, usually when there is a conflict between the id, ego, and superego, do you remember the id, ego, and superego? Guys, I need to know so that I can know what I need to tell you about the topic. Do you remember? If not, please tell me. I will elaborate on the id, ego, and superego.
Uh, well, for me, I don't quite remember. For the rest, I'm not too sure because maybe we've gone through it, but during revision, I didn't like.
Okay. Okay. So Sigmund Freud argued that our mind is divided into id, ego, and superego. The id is the part of the mind, like there's the picture where you have a person and then you have a devil on the left shoulder and an angel on the right shoulder. Do you know
Yeah.
about this picture?
Yes, yes. Like we
It's
say,
similar.
everyone has got a positive and a negative side.
Exactly. So the id, ego, and superego is the same. So the id is the devil on the shoulder, on the left shoulder. The id always wants everything now. It's the impulsive. Uh, the id is very impulsive. So the id will tell you, "I want this now," and you will have to try to please the id. And the superego, it will tell you that you cannot. There's a picture here. I don't know if you can see it. An illustration for the id, ego, and superego. The superego will tell you that you cannot have it. It's not the right moment to have whatever that you want now. And the ego will act as a buffer between the id and the superego. The ego will tell you that maybe you need a little more planning to be able to get whatever that you want. An example that I'll give you. I had this in one of my. There was someone who gave this example in one of my previous classes. You want to eat noodles. The it tells you that I want noodle right now. The super and you are on a diet. You won't eat fast food and all. Your super ego tells you that you are on a diet. You cannot eat noodles. Be it fried noodles but let's just say that you want fried noodles, and your superego tells you that you're on a diet, you can't eat fried noodles. Your ego, to mediate between the id and the superego, the ego will tell you that, okay, if you can't have fried noodles, since you want to eat noodles, maybe you can have boiled noodles, which is a bit more healthy as compared to the fried noodles. So the ego will always try to balance the id and the superego. The ego acts as a buffer between these two. And the id, ego, and superego, it falls under the structural theory, which tells you that you have an unconscious mind and a conscious mind. And the id usually in the unconscious mind and always pester you to get things that you shouldn't be going for. So when there is a conflict between the id, ego, and superego, it gives rise to anxiety. And to be able to face this anxiety and to protect ourselves from this anxiety or feeling of guilt, we use defense mechanism. We use it to protect ourselves from feeling of guilt and anxiety, which arises following a conflict among the id, ego, and superego, or because our id or superego becomes too demanding. And this is something that we use in our daily life. It, the defense mechanism usually operates at the unconscious level, and it helps us maintain a certain mental stability and avoid anxiety. So an example of defense mechanism here is you have different defense mechanism. I will post a document on defense mechanism. You can further read on it and do your own notes on defense mechanism. So these are few examples of defense mechanism. You have repression, that is it is a mechanism employed by the ego to keep disturbing or threatening thoughts from becoming conscious. So you repress any memories which might cause you harm. For example, if someone has been a victim of abuse in childhood, and they've been very it's something very each and every time they think about it, they feel bad about it, so they will try not to think about this period of their life, and they will repress any emotions, any memories of this event, so that they do not think about it again to disturb their present or their future. Another defense mechanism is denial. It involves blocking external events from awareness. If some situation is just too much to handle, a person just refuses to experience it. An example of denial is when, let's just say that you didn't succeed in the exams. You didn't succeed because you haven't done a good revision, but you would not take the blame for not succeeding in the exam. You will just say that no, I did a very good revision, it's just that the paper was tough, or the tutor was not good enough, he or she didn't explain about this topic. So you are denying the fact that you are responsible for your failure, and you're blaming someone else for it. And projection, it involves individual attributing their own unacceptable thoughts, feeling, and motives to another person. For example, if you were in a fight with someone and you started shouting at that person, and since you've started, that person started shouting back at you. And someone comes in to regulate the fight, and you tell the person that I wasn't the one shouting, that the other person was the one who started screaming at me. So you're projecting your own unacceptable behavior on the other person to feel good about yourself. So this is projection. Displacement is satisfying an impulse with a substitute object. An example here is someone who is frustrated by his or her boss at work may go home and kick their dog. Unfortunately, you even have this type of defense mechanism. And regression is a movement back in psychological time when one is faced with stress. So an example is a child may begin to suck their thumb again or wet the bed when they need to spend some time in the hospital. Another example that I can give you is I don't know if you've ever experienced it or not, if you've seen someone experience it. Sometimes when you're very sad and when you're crying, you are in a situation which you can no longer bear with all the pressure coming around, you tend to put yourself in a similar position that a fetus, in a fetal position. I don't know if you've ever experienced it. And research have shown that when you put yourself in that situation, in this position, you feel safe. You feel as safe as you were in your mother's womb. So this is an example of regression. And sublimation is satisfying an impulse with a substitute object in a more socially acceptable way. For example, um, instead of acting out when you are angry, you decide to put all your emotions in trying to practice a sport, for example, kickboxing or karate. So this is sublimation. So here is an example of repression. Sorry, regression. Regression, due to pressure of college, Tom starts sucking his thumb. So as you can see in this picture, Tom is very stressed about dealing with all the pressure which comes with the exams, the assignment, the pressure of going to lectures. So he doesn't know how to manage all this stress and anxiety from this situation. So he slips back to an earlier stage of development, that is sucking his thumb. I don't know if you've ever been through such situation, but you can reflect by reading on defense mechanism and the different types of defense mechanism. Maybe you can reflect back on certain situations or experience that you might have faced when you use these different types of defense mechanism. So your assignment will be on defense mechanism. Before continuing, I would just show you the assignment question. So can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so your assignment is due on Monday, the 1st May 2023. So you need to submit a soft copy in Word format. Emphasis is on Word format. Directly on Blackboard, a folder will be created where you will have to submit the assignment. The assignment, the word limit for the assignment is 1,500 words. Moins 10% ou plus 10%. Your assignment shouldn't be more than 1,700 mots. It shouldn't go up to 2,000 words. Please respect the word limit. And you also have a penalty if ever you submit late. And if ever you have any issue pertaining to the assignment, I am reachable on this email address. You send me an email, you are not being able to submit due to this reason, that reason. You send me an email, you inform about your situation. I will take this into consideration and see if I can give you an extension. If you do not inform me about a late submission, you will be penalized. Okay, I am lenient, but if I haven't been made aware of the reason why you are submitting late, I will deduct your marks. Okay? Please share this message with all your friends if they are not in the class. So the assignment question is on defense mechanism. You have a small case study here. Mrs. John comes to you to seek help for her adult son, Joe. She informs you that Joe spends most of his time at home playing video games and that he often throws things around the house when he's angry. Mrs. John further explains that each time her son misbehaves at home, he accuses her of being the reason behind his anger. She informs you that when her son gets angry, He often shouts at the dog, and when she intervenes, he tells her that the dog is making too much noise. Too much noise, sorry. So, based on the above case study, and by elaborating on Freud's concept of defense mechanism, explain how this concept, that is defense mechanism, can be used to better understand Joe's behavior. So, what I'm expecting from you is that you read this case study, you identify which defense mechanism is in play in this case study. You have three defense mechanisms. So you identify these three defense mechanisms. So you start your assignment with a brief introduction. And then you proceed on explaining about the structural theory, that is the id, ego, and superego, how a conflict among these three concepts leads to anxiety, and how, due to this anxiety, we use defense mechanism to feel good about ourselves. So you explain about the concept of defense mechanism, that is how it due to the conflict we use it and how this conflict arises. So you explain about all of this, and then you explain about the different mechanism, the three main different mechanism in play in this case study. And you need to support your argument with research-based evidence. For example, if you are to explain about regression, you look for studies which has been done on regression, and what does the result of these studies, that is what did it tell you, do adults mostly use regression, the reason why they use regression. And when you are elaborating on this, you use the finding from this research, that is, you say to according to research done by Mr. XYZ, it has been argued that regression is a defense mechanism which is mostly used among adults because they mostly face with stress from day-to-day life. An example of how you should be supporting your argument with research-based evidence. If you do not give research-based evidence, you will not get that much of good marks, and it will not show critical analysis, which I'm expecting from you. And your assignment is worth 30 marks. If you have any question, you can contact me. I will help you as much as I can. And we are supposed to have a class next week on the 8th. So I will post this assignment. You go through the assignment and you identify the defense mechanism in play. And then on the 8th, we will further discuss about the defense mechanism so that you don't go out of subject, and then you can start with the writing. Use this 1 week as a week to do research on the topic, understand the topic, and then next week we can discuss about the defense mechanism in this case study. Okay? Do you guys have any question? Anyone? Do you have questions? Or is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. The research should be on defense mechanism.
Yes, your assignment, yeah, your the research work that you will do, it has to be on the topic that you are being assessed on.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
most importantly, no copy pasting. You do not copy anything from the internet. Your assignment will go through plagiarism, And if it is more than 30%, you will be penalized. So please, you can read about it on the internet, but just paraphrase it in your own word. You do not have to copy paste the whole thing from the internet and put it in your assignment. And sometimes your tutor might not see that you've copy pasted a certain just a paragraph from the internet. But unfortunately, if your friends copy the same paragraph, so malheureusement, the tutor will know and you'll be penalized for same. And sanctioned for plagiarism, c'est grave au niveau de l'université. And you may be reported and you may be given 0 marks for due to plagiarism. So please make a must. Write in your own words and avoid copying from the internet. It will not help you. Okay, so I will post this assignment right after the class, and then you can further read about it and about the topic. And I'll just give you a small tip before we proceed with the class. You will be examined on defense mechanism in the exams. So please make it a must to read about the defense mechanism, the different defense mechanism. I will further post a document on this, so make sure that you prepare your notes on defense mechanism. Okay?
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt.
So
I just wanted to know, like, if we take a code from the research, etc., that would be okay if we just put them in
if you use a code, then you have to use reference. And
the.
thank you so much for asking about this, because I forgot to mention about reference.
All right.
You need to reference each and every source of information. It is important that you reference because firstly, it shows that you've done some research work. It shows that you are able to write something in your own words by making reference to the article that you've read. And also, it shows it reflects professional writing. So reference is very important. If you are using a code, then it's important that you reference the author, the page, and the year in which the code or the article has been published. Okay? So this is for defense mechanism. Now the other therapy which falls under the the analytic approaches is Adlerian therapy by Alfred Adler. So Adler argued that individual needs to be understood within their social context. He argued that each individual has one basic desire: to belong and to feel significant. He also talked about superiority versus inferiority. In psychology, we have different debates. One of these debates is superiority versus inferiority. And the Adlerian therapy is mostly focused on this feeling of superiority versus inferiority, and on the development of individual personality, and at the same time understands and accepts interconnectedness of all individuals. Adler also argued that birth order shapes our development and personality. That is, it affects the way that we behave in society and in our day-to-day life. He argued that the firstborn, Adler proposed this. I'm not the one saying it. Adler proposed this. So he argued that the firstborn are usually more mature, and they mostly exhibit qualities and signs of good leaders, and the firstborn are mostly independent and they are autonomous. And he argued that the middle children, they have good social skills and they're more creative as compared to the firstborn and the youngest child. And he also argued that middle children are mostly caught up between the the uh, the firstborn and the youngest child. And he further argued that the youngest child are often babied by their parents and their siblings, and that they are less matured compared to their older siblings. And and several research has indicated that the youngest child are more likely to get into troubles when they are teenager as compared to their siblings. So I don't know if you can relate to this. There has been a lot of debates on the birth order proposed by Adler, but in some situation, I don't know if you guys can relate to it, but in certain situation, it can be true that the first child is more mature and has better leadership qualities as compared to the youngest child, who is more of a troublemaker. So this is for the analytic approaches. So you have two therapy which falls under the analytic approach. So you have the psychoanalytic therapy and the Adlerian therapy. I have a message in the message box from you guys. If you can just unmute and talk to me instead of sending messages, because it becomes difficult to read the messages while conducting the session. So I have someone who told me, so Mr. Gautam Buban, yes, the next class is supposed to be on the 29th of April, but as per the timetable, yes, but we didn't have our first session on in the beginning of March, so it's a replacement class that we'll be having next week, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Okay. So if you guys are not free, if there's something we can discuss about it after the class. So continuing with our theories of counseling. So the second approach is the existential approach by Viktor Frankl, Bolomé, and Yalom. So the existential approach proposes that an individual experiences intrapsychic conflict, similar to what the psychoanalytic theory argues. So it is argued that results from interaction with it is argued that the intrapsychic conflict results from interaction with some inherent condition called givens. So these givens, according to the existential approach, are freedom and associated responsibility, death, isolation, and meaningless. So you have four main givens under the existential approach. So it is argued that confrontation with these givens give rise to frightening emotion known as existential anxiety. This anxiety often impacts on our psychological, physical, social, and spiritual well-being. So an example of this given is death. We all know that at some point in our life, we will be faced with death. But for some people, it can lead to anxiety, which may often impact on their psychological and physical well-being, knowing that the next thing that is awaiting us is death. It mostly happens among older adults when they've lived their life and they know that the only thing that they will be waiting for next is eventually death. So it may result in certain anxiety or even panic attack and existential anxiety among these individuals. But it doesn't only happen among older adults. It may even happen among younger adults. Some people, they fear death, and due to this, they might develop what we call the existential anxiety, which impacts on their behavior, on their mental health, and even physical health. So, another approach which falls under the experimental and relationship oriented approach is the person centered approach by Carl Rogers. Have you ever heard of Carl Rogers? Anyone? Okay, so Carl Rogers, he was mostly focused on uh, his therapies are mostly focused on counselees, that is client. He believes that when you focus, you direct your counseling according to what the client wishes, it will be a more fruitful counseling. So he argued that therapists must be genuine, understanding, and show warmth towards clients' condition, and this will help clients' condition to improve. He also proposed that individual must focus on his or her subjective understanding rather than on someone else's interpretation of the situation or in some unconscious motive. So, as compared to Sigmund Freud, Rogers believed that we need to focus on our understanding of things. We shouldn't focus on any unconscious motives or past experiences. No. He said that the way that we understand the situation now, this understanding will help us in getting better and in facing any situation. So his main focus was on personal growth and self-actualization. And he argued that to be a good therapist or a counselor, you must be congruent with the client, that is, genuine with your client. You should give unconditional positive regards, and you should be empathetic towards your client. So, this is for the person centered approach. Another therapy which falls under the experimental and relationship oriented approach, you have the Gestalt therapy by Frederick and Laura Perls. So, in this therapy, it is argued that by becoming aware, one becomes able to choose or organize one's own existence in a meaningful manner. So, to answer your question about the assignment, if you need to code something, so this is how you code something, and then you use your reference at the end. Okay. So, individuals are complexly connected to and are influenced by our environment. There is a huge debate about whether the environment influences our behavior, the way that we perceive a problem, the way that we try to find a solution to a problem. It is argued that environment does have a huge impact on all of this. But there are some people who are against this notion, against this statement that environment has an impact on us. But usually it's a combination of both our genes and the environment that impacts on our behavior and the way that we perceive certain situations. So the Gestalt therapy works towards achieving growth and balance in one's life. Empathy, understanding, and unconditional acceptance of an individual is an integral part of the therapy. The therapy also proposes that an individual shall not be fully understood without a proper understanding of his context or environment. So, when this therapy tells you that when you are studying a person, you cannot only study the individual, you have to study the individual in connection to his environment, because his parents, sibling, or friends, or even the place where he or she lives can have an impact on the person. The culture, family tradition, etc., it does have an impact on an individual. So, like I've told you, no individual can be totally objective, and they are influenced by their own context or environment that they are surrounded with. So, this therapy mostly tells you that if you want to study an individual, you want to help a person, you need to study the person in his environment to be able to help, to be able to further guide the person to try to find a solution to his or her problems. So the third theories of counseling is the third approach is the action therapies. Under the action therapies, you have the reality therapy by William Glasser. So the importance, the therapy focuses mostly on the actual issues affecting the client rather than past issues. So it's not your childhood experiences, it's not any trauma that you've been through in the childhood that will affect your behavior according to this therapy. So the therapy helps alter any kind of behavior which may hinder a person from finding solution to any issues that they might be facing. The emphasis is on problem solving, and it is argued that if psychological needs are not met, individual might experience mental illness. So, you guys read about Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
know about the hierarchy of needs?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You did that in applied psychology, right?
Yes.
So this theory, the concept under this theory, it's mostly like the hierarchy of needs. The psychological needs in reality therapy are power, love and belonging, freedom, fun, and survival. So it is argued that if these needs are not met, an individual might experience a mental condition. Okay, so it is mostly like the hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy, the main aim of going up the pyramid is to achieve self actualization. But in this context, you need to fulfill these psychological needs to be able to achieve a good mental stability. So another therapy which falls under the action therapies is the behavioral therapy by B.F. Skinner, Lazam, and Bandura. Do you know about B.F. Skinner and Bandura? Operant conditioning, social learning theory? No? Positive
Behavioral
reinforcement, negative reinforcement?
behavioral psychology.
Yes, it's under behavioral psychology. So, in behavior therapy, you use these different concepts: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, classical conditioning, social learning theory. You use all of this in behavioral therapy to be able to help a person to reach self actualization, to understand their situation and find a solution to their problem. So, the focus on this therapy is on enhancing personal choices and to generate new conditions of learning. In this therapy, you usually identify and help change unhealthy behaviors. And this therapy is based on the assumption that all behaviors can be learned and unlearned through positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment. So this therapy is related to the behavior psychology. And then you have the rational emotive therapy. So an individual's emotional functioning is affected by his or her beliefs. As individual, we have both rational and irrational tendencies. Irrational beliefs makes us feel anxious, depressed, and can lead to self-defeating behaviors. And irrational beliefs also hinder goal achievement. It leads to inner conflict and poor mental health. Rational belief, on the other hand, leads to more inner harmony and goal achievement. So in counseling, you often come across people with a lot of irrational beliefs, but it is not your work to tell them that, look, your belief is irrational. You should never ever touch someone's belief. So you can guide them so that they understand by themselves that the belief that they are harboring is an irrational belief and it's causing more harm as compared to good. So, usually to do so, you use the rational emotive therapy to help the person understand that the beliefs that they're harboring is actually uh, irrational and causing a lot of harm, and it's causing more, is leading to more self-defeating behaviors. So another therapy which falls under the action therapies is CBT. Have you ever heard of CBT? Cognitive behavioral therapy. No? We? CBT? Cognitive psychology?
Yes.
Okay, so CBT, this is an illustration of how CBT works. So, according to CBT, our behavior, our thoughts and feeling, they are all connected. So a change in either thoughts, feelings, or behavior can lead to a change in the way that you perceive something. So, for example, an example that I can give you, if you are, let's just say that you are afraid of spiders. So, feelings, you are afraid of spiders. If you see a spider, you will, you are, let's just say that you're afraid that a spider might harm you, right? You have a thought that spider are harmful. You will definitely be afraid of spider. So your feeling is that you're afraid of spider. So based on this thought that spiders are harmful and you are scared of spiders, eventually if you see a spider, you might scream or start running away. If you try to change this thought that is spiders are harmful and you see them as harmless insects, your feeling towards spiders might change and you might not be that afraid of spiders. And eventually, if you see a spider, you will not run away or start screaming when you see a spider. So, this is how CBT works. If when using CBT in therapy, the therapist or the counselor will focus either on thoughts, feeling, or behavior. He or she will try to change one among these three, and automatically the behavior towards any concept or let's just say any object or insect will change. Usually, CBT is used in the therapy is used mostly with people with aggressive with when people come into therapy for aggression, for alcoholism, you have a substance abuse. CBT is mostly used with these people because the focus then is on the thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and the therapist try to change one among these three to help them overcome their situation. CBT is used in other different situation, and it is one of the most leading therapies around the world. And if you know how to use CBT, if you understand CBT, it becomes easier for you to change your thoughts, feelings, and behavior towards a certain situation or object. I've tried using, as a personal experience, I'll tell you, I tried using CBT. I'm very afraid of spiders. I tried using CBT on myself to try not to be afraid of spiders. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked yet. And each time I see a spider, you will find me screaming and running away because I'm scared of spiders. So far, CBT hasn't worked on me for my situation with spiders. But if ever there's anything that you wish to change in your life, maybe you can read about CBT and see how this therapy is used and try to implement same with you and see if it works. So another approach under theories of counseling, the last one is the system perspective. So under the system perspective, you have the feminist therapy and the family system therapy. So the feminist therapy focuses on empowering women. It helps them overcome stereotypes and molds of some traditional roles which might hinder their growth and development. The emphasis is placed on strengthening self esteem, communication, relationship, and assertiveness. The feminist therapy is used with men too. It helps them overcome role and gender constraints. The four major unique approaches of the feminist therapy is social and gender role analysis, social activism, resocialization, and consciousness raising. The family system therapy, on the other hand, helps people to resolve their issues in the context of family unit, where it is believed that many issues are likely to take place. Family members work together to understand their group dynamics, and action of one affects the other and the family as a group. So the family system therapy believes that if one person within the family is not okay, the whole family will not feel okay. So if ever there's any situation with a person, counselors who uses family system therapy usually convene the whole family to have a session with the whole family to make them understand about the situation and try using the family to help a person find a solution to the problem he or she might be facing. And the family system therapy is a very interesting therapy. You may go and read more about it, and it can help you understand certain behaviors which you identify in the family or even within your own family. So the theories of counseling, the different approaches, that is the analytic approach, the experimental and relationship oriented approach, the action therapies, and the system therapies, these are very important. You need to know at least one therapy which falls under each approach and be able to explain about this therapy. So you have a lot of therapies under the different approaches. You need to choose one which you're more at ease with and look for more notes on the therapy that you're choosing. And you should be able, if ever you're given a question on this, you should be able to elaborate on at least one therapy which falls under each approach. So you have four main approaches. You have to know at least one therapy which falls under each approaches. That is, you have to know about four therapy in total. Sorry. Okay. So this is for your revision. Please make sure that you learn about this. And there's another slide about family therapy. So family therapy helps individual and families to better understand the group dynamics of their family, identify strengths and weaknesses within the family unit, work out strategies to solve problems, develop communication skills, and make the family unit stronger. Okay, so now we will elaborate on the difference between counseling and psychotherapy. So, counseling and psychotherapy, they are two very different things. Counseling usually is a short term process which encourages change of behavior by focusing on one individual issue at a time. Psychotherapy, on the other hand, is a long term process that uncovers the root of the problem and difficulties and finds solution to address them. Counseling usually it's a maximum of 5, 6 sessions. Psychotherapy it can go on to 20 or even more sessions. Usually the people who comes for counseling, they are people who can think more rationally, and they have an understanding of well-being, and they are able to find solution to their problems with very little help. However, people coming in for psychotherapy, they are people who are dependent on the therapist, and they are not able to have a control over their emotions, mind, and the issues that they are facing. When it comes to the method used in counseling and psychotherapy, counseling it tackles more. In counseling, usually we tackle issues in less in-depth manner. But in psychotherapy, we usually use extensive and intense knowledge of psychological theories that we've just discussed, and the course of treatment needed. In psychotherapy, we usually help clients to dig into their past experiences to better understand themselves and their environment to be able to find a proper solution to their problem. So counseling is you have very few sessions as compared to psychotherapy. Psychotherapy. The people who comes in for counseling, they know that they have a problem and they do not need that much help to be able to overcome their issues. However, for psychotherapy, these people they are more dependent on the therapist, and they do not have they do not have the control over their emotions, their mind, or the issues that they are facing. And in counseling, issues are tackled in a much it is tackled in a less depth manner, and in psychotherapy you need to further dig into the person's life, their past experiences, to be able to help them come up with a solution to their problems. So you have to know about the differences between counseling and psychotherapy and be able to explain the differences by focusing on the time, the patient, and the method which are used in the two different fields. Okay, so you have, moving on, you have 4 types of counseling. So people, they seek counseling for different reasons. You might have people coming in because they are just they don't know how to tackle a certain issues. You may have people coming in because they can't make a decision about whether to go forward with let's just say marriage or not. You may have people coming in because they find themselves in a situation where they're stuck. They don't know how to overcome this situation. So you have different reasons why people come into seek counseling. And there are different types of counseling which are used, but the widely used ones are directive counseling, non-directive counseling, eclectic counseling, and group counseling. So in your manual, there's a small mistakes. There's a small mistake. It's written. If you look at your manual on page 9, it's written electric counseling. It's not electric. It's eclectic counseling. So, what is directive counseling? Directive counseling is when the counselor is in charge of the counseling. That is, the counselor will be the one who will be having the main role, and he will direct the thinking that the client will be doing. And he will tell the client to focus on this part or that part of the session. So the counselor would be mostly explaining, advising, interpreting information for the client. The limitation of directive counseling is that it is difficult to help the client come up with a solution to their problems with directive counseling. The client might become more dependent on the counselor to find solution to the problems that he or she might be having. And it may be difficult for the client to develop personal autonomy, and hence it will lead to a hindrance in the client's personal growth. The second type of therapy is non-directive therapy. As proposed by Carl Rogers, the focus will be on the client. So it will be a client-centered approach. The counselor will be here to listen to the client, but it will be the client who will do most of the talking and the client who would be guiding the counseling session. One of the main limitations of this type of counseling is that it's time consuming, and it is not suitable for counselors who are not well experienced, as they might have difficulty interpreting the feelings expressed by client. So the most used method in counseling is the eclectic counseling. So the eclectic counseling is a combination of both directive and non-directive counseling. So in eclectic counseling, both the counselor and the counselee do the talking. There is a reciprocal relationship, and there is a communication between the two where feedback is received, and there is a good understanding of what is being discussed. So in eclectic counseling, the counselor is neither too active nor too passive. He is there for the client and will intervene as and when needed. So the difference between directive and non-directive counseling. Directive counseling it's economical because it's direct, and the emphasis is on the problem. The emphasis is on the intellectual aspect of the problem. The methodology is direct and persuasive, and it solves immediate problems. The counselor play an active role, and help is offered by the counselor to take decision. On the other hand, non-directive counseling, it's time consuming because it's the client who will direct the session. The emphasis is on the client. The emphasis is on the emotional aspect of the situation. The methodology is indirect. It deals mostly with self-analysis. New problem of adjustment may be discussed as well. The counselor plays a passive role, and the client takes his own decision. So most of the counseling done, for most counseling, usually the eclectic counseling is used because it's better and it helps you to better understand your client and help your client to attain independence. So the limitation of eclectic counseling is that it is sometimes considered as vague, opportunistic, and superficial. A counselor might do, if the counselor is not is not experienced, the counselor might do more harm than good. And if they do not have a clear understanding of the problem being faced by the client. Another type of counseling is group counseling. Group counseling, it is usually done if you are using family system therapy, if you're regrouping people with the same issue together to be able to open up about the situation or discuss about any problem that they might be facing. It is a group of individuals seen by one counselor. The group interaction method is used to find solution to familiar problems to the group. Each member is given the opportunity to express their feelings pertaining to the topic being discussed. So, the limitation of group counseling is that the counselor must have a profound knowledge of the group work method and interaction process, or else the counselor may find it very difficult to deal with self disclosure, decision making processes, etc. If the group size is large, the counselor might find it difficult to provide appropriate help to each and every individual in the session. So you have different types of counseling. You have four main types of counseling as discussed. You need to know about these different types of counseling and be able to explain about what is directive, non-directive, eclectic, or group counseling. Okay, so this is for the first topic. It was all about theory, the most boring part of this module, but hopefully the next sessions won't be as uh, like being bombarded with so much information. So this is for the first topic. Do you have any question? Anyone? Do you have any question? Are you still here?
No questions, ma'am.
Okay, good. So we will jump to Unit 2. Unit 2 is not that long, and you have a lot of information on Unit 2 in your manual, so I would not go in depth in some topic. So Unit 2 is mostly about the counselor in the social work setting. So it's mostly about the different skills and techniques that you use as a counselor. So, what is the relationship between social work and counseling? Social work and counseling, they are distinct fields, but they do share common theories. And counseling is a crucial element in social work. Counseling is a term used by many other fields. You have counseling in education, you have counseling in business management, in accounting, you have counseling everywhere. But there's different degree of counseling which is carried out, and the counseling that is used in social work, psychology, or even counseling itself, it's more or less the same. So counseling takes into consideration three main concepts. The first one is dealing with intrapersonal and interpersonal problems, that is person oriented, what we will be mostly focusing on. And the second one is advice giving and guidance in decision making, mostly advisory. So we are mostly concerned with dealing with the first one, that is dealing with intrapersonal and interpersonal problems. So person-oriented counseling uses more paraphrasing and reflecting. Advisory counseling, on the other hand, uses more explanation, making sure that the client has reached satisfactory understanding of what is being said, summarizing actions to be undertaken, etc. But however, we do have overlapping techniques. However, overlapping techniques are present in both types of counseling. So, what is the main role of a counselor? A counselor usually facilitates the assessment, identification, and definition of a client's problem and their solutions. So, a counselor will help a client in finding and utilizing internal and external life situations and challenges. Just 1 minute, please. Mr. Sukan, did you raise your hand? Do you have any question?
Yes, madam, are you sharing content for Unit 2? Because I think I'm
Yeah.
just seeing
You can't see?
limitations. No,
You can't see?
no, I'm seeing the
Okay.
last slide of Unit 1.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. Thank you for informing me about this. So, yeah. So, the role of a counselor, we were discussing about the role of a
Yes,
counselor.
okay, I can see it now.
So, okay. So, a counselor provides encouragement and guidance to the client. The counselor help client to cope more effectively with problems or day-to-day problems. And the counselor helps client to identify their problems and help them, guide them so that they can find a solution to their own problems. And the counselor facilitates instead of providing advices. So the basic skills which is required from a counselor. So you, as a counselor, you need to know about the type of counseling that you're using, the skills that you are using, and the behavior that you are displaying. It is all important in helping your client to trust you. If there is no mutual trust between you and your client, the counseling session will not be fruitful. You will not be able to develop a counseling therapeutic relationship with your client. And if you don't have this therapeutic relationship, you will not be able to proceed with the good counseling where you will be able to help the client. So clients are more likely to be able to reach their objective when there's a positive relationship between them and the counselor. So, Carl Burgess argued that a good counselor needs to have the following skills: empathy. So, do you know about empathy? Have you ever heard about the word empathy? Anyone?
Yes, ma'am. This
Yes,
to feel what to share and feel other person's feelings.
exactly. So, one very simple definition of empathy is to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and to understand their situation from their point of view. So, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feeling of another person. As a counselor, if you are unable to do this, you will not be able to help your client. Empathy is an important and crucial and a mandatory skill that you as a counselor you need to have. If you don't have empathy, it will be very difficult for you to understand your client and be there to provide guidance to your client. So empathy, it's very different from sympathy. And to be able to emphasize with someone, especially people who are different from us, a, a counselor needs to have an open mind, be committed, be imaginative, and most importantly, is the client. The counselor needs to help the client accept himself or herself. And as a counselor, you too, you need to be able to accept yourself the way that you are. It's only then that you'll be able to understand someone else. So empathy is a very important skill that you need to have. Congruency. Congruency, it is genuineness. So if you do not, your client doesn't feel that you are genuine, the client will not trust you And if the client doesn't trust you, the client will not open up about his or her situation, and the client might even lie to you about the situation, and this will not help you in your assessment or in providing the guidance that is needed. So congruency involves honesty and sincerity from counselors, and by being genuine, it also means that you shouldn't try to fool your client in saying that they need more than 10 sessions just because of the financial gain that you will be receiving from this. So if your client needs only 2 sessions, you have to be genuine, you have to be honest with your client and tell them that they do not need that much session. So 2 sessions will be fine, and they should be okay after the 2 sessions. The third skill proposed by Carl Rogers is unconditional positive regards. People will grow and reach their full potential if they value themselves. So, as a counselor, you should not be critical and you should not be judgmental in your reactions towards whatever your client is feeling. Your opinions, your attitude about certain topic, opinions about a certain subject or anything that your client might be telling you, it might differ from them, but that doesn't mean that their opinion or their views are incorrect. We all have different opinions. We all have different attitude towards a certain object. As a counselor, we need to respect that our client is different from us, that our client has different beliefs, our client has different views and different opinions about certain topics, which actually makes the beauty of an individual, because we are all different, and as a counselor you need to accept this. You shouldn't for example, if the client tells you that rose is not a beautiful flower, for instance, and you find rose very nice as a flower, it is not your job to go and tell the client that you are wrong. Rose is very beautiful and it's very nice, and you find them almost everywhere. And this is the gift that this is the flower that symbolizes love, etc. No, you shouldn't be telling your client all of this. If they have their opinion about rose, you should respect them. What you can do is help them realize that maybe their opinion is not might not be correct. For example, you mostly do this in situations where you have irrational beliefs. So with your work, you know that whatever the client is telling you about, it's irrational, but it's not your duty to tell the client directly that whatever you're doing, it's not correct, and whatever you're thinking about, it's not correct. You are here, you should be guiding your client to understand that the beliefs that they have are irrational. So as a counselor, you need to respect your client, you need to respect their opinions and attitudes on certain topics, and you should be non-critical and non-judgmental. So these 3 skills are very important for you to be a good counselor: empathy, congruency, and unconditional positive regards. There has been more skills and techniques proposed by Ali and Bacon, skills and techniques that a counselor needs to have and needs to be able to each time use these skills in the different sessions that they might be having. So Ali and Bacon identify several skills, and one of these are attending. So in a counseling session, you should physically and psychologically attend to a client. Physically, how? It's by firstly maintaining eye contact. Eye contact is very important in a counseling session. You need, by maintaining eye contact, you are showing your client that you are actually listening to them, you are understanding whatever they're saying, and you are paying attention to whatever is being said. And your body position is also of great importance. You should be in a position where you show your client can see that you're actually focusing on whatever they're saying. Psychological attending can be identified through verbal and non-verbal messages like facial expression, like just saying, okay, I understand. So these are the different types of attending that your client is expecting from you. And active listening is very important. You should be listening to everything that your client is telling you about. You should you should be able to identify the different tone of voice to see which matter is more sensitive and which matter isn't. You should listen to hints to understand the different feelings that your client is trying to display. You should resist distraction from the environment. You pay attention to the distortions in whatever the client is telling you about. And you must also focus on the different emotional themes in play in whatever the client is telling you about. So active listening is very important. Another skill is encouraging as a part of attending. An example that you have here. For example, your client should be encouraged to continue sharing his thoughts, behaviors, or feelings through verbal and non-verbal prompting. So if your client is elaborating on something, you can use questions like, can you tell me more about it? So can you give me an example of what you're saying? Another way of encouraging your client to continue is by nodding and showing your client that you're actually listening to whatever they're saying. You have also exploration skills. To that is to whatever your client is telling you about, you respond with empathy, that is listening and understanding what the client is feeling, and then communicate your understanding. For example, if you see that your client is a bit sad when talking about their pet, so you can just tell them, I can see that there has been a change in emotion when it comes to you talking about your pet. So is there something which has happened that makes you feel like this? So you are exploring, you are asking questions to further probe and to further understand their situation or their emotion in relation to certain topic. So coming to probing and questioning, these are essential because you would not be able to understand your client without asking questions or probing about certain topic. So you have direct questions and indirect questions that you can use as well. Silence. Now, silence is a very important part of counseling. While in a counseling, while your client is talking about something, if all of a sudden you see that they've gone silent and they do not continue about whatever they're saying, it will give you cues to assess their mental and emotional situation. It can, silence may also act as an encourager, that is after discussing about a very difficult situation, by remaining silent, you may help your client gather their thoughts, their feelings, and absorb whatever has been discussed to further open up about any other situation which they want to talk about. So silence is very important in a counseling session. It doesn't have to be interpreted as a moment where you don't know what to say. It mostly acts as an encourager, and it shows to your client that you've given them the time to gather themselves and to recollect their thoughts and emotions to be able to progress in the counseling. So you have understanding, so you have to show empathy to your client by understanding their situation, behaviors, and the self disclosure is another important part of counseling. Sometimes when you see that your client is stuck on certain topic and he or she is unable to open up about certain situation, you might in some instances talk about a personal experience that you've had pertaining to a similar topic. However, when you are disclosing any personal information to your client, you should ensure that when disclosing this information, the focus remains on the client and the focus doesn't shift to you as a counselor, and you don't start just only talking about your problem. And when you are disclosing an information, it has to be done with much cautious, because the information that you're disclosing should be something that will help your client to further open up, and not something that will force your client not to speak about the topic. Another skills that you need to have is to be able to confront your client if the need arises. What is confrontation? Confrontation is a form of advanced empathy which enables the client to think over behaviors or thoughts that might be harmful or self-defeating. Usually, confrontation, you have them mostly in sessions of couple counseling, where you've heard, let's just say, the husband, and then you hear you listen to the wife, and the information that they are giving you, they do not match, and you have some gap in the information which you've received. So you confront your client. It is a form of challenge where you encourage them to speak the truth, to give you the information that is correct, and it will also help your client to understand that you mean business, that you want the truth to be able to help them, and that you will not encourage them lying to you about their situation, because it will not help in any counseling session. However, when you are using confrontation, you need to be very careful, and you need to show great level of empathy. You shouldn't go forward and say that you've lied to me. Why are you lying to me? You should be telling the truth. How am I going to help you if you're lying to me? No, it should be done in a very discreet manner. And you should, like I've told you, it should be done with a great level of empathy, and help your client realize that it's the truth that they need to give you. So another skills that is also used in counseling session is immediacy. That is making use of the current situation to help your client to further open up. So immediacy is the ability of the counselor to make use of immediate situation to help the client to look at what is going on between them. It involves the use of present tense statement. For example, I remember that you have said that you are angry on rare occasions, but I feel that right now you are angry at me, even if your pitch of tone is quite low. So can you please tell me more about it? So this will help the client to realize that you've actually been listening to them, you've actually been paying attention to their tone of voice, their facial expression, that you are giving your time, and you're giving your time, and you are analyzing the situation. So this will help the client to further open up. And usually immediacy is used to deal with lack of trust in between you and your client. If there's a lack of trust, so you can tackle this situation and help build your relationship with your client. And you also have interpretation, that is how you interpret your client's behavior, understanding, and observations. Directives are instructions that you can give to your client, and advising is a form of directive. And it's just that you shouldn't be advising your client, but if you are advising your client to do something, you have to take full responsibility of whatever you are saying to your client, and assume the consequences that comes with whatever you've advice you've given them. Okay, so these are the different skills that a counselor needs to have. You have more information on this in your manual. Usually, you would not be asked to know all of these skills, but you need to know about the three main skills proposed by Carl Rogers. There are a few skills that you need to know about Ali and Bacon, but in maybe in our revision class, I will put more emphasis on the skills that you need to be more that you need to know more about. So to end, we will discuss about the difference between a counselor and a social worker. A social worker uses counseling in their work, but they are not counselors. So after this module, after you've cleared this module, you will not become a counselor. You will just be equipped with the necessary skills to conduct brief counseling session to help your client. So a social worker is a professional that focuses on enhancing the lives of people at individual and group level. The social worker works in a variety of settings: private practices, hospitals, schools, non-governmental organizations, elderly homes, etc. Social worker helps people to have clinical treatments, but also have access to services to which they are entitled to, and the services to help improve their lives. And social worker can act as a counselor, but they require tertiary education and training to be able to become a counselor and provide counseling as a counselor. So a counselor helps a client, to identify and understand their problem and find solution to this problem by making positive changes in themselves. A counselor usually works in clinical settings, and a social worker can act as a counselor, but a counselor cannot act as a social worker. Okay, so this is for your information, but you won't be examined on the difference between a counselor and a social worker. So do you have any question?
Yes, ma'am. In
Yes.
other words, a counselor is a psychologist?
No, a counselor is not a psychologist. A counselor, a psychologist, they go through a different training. A counselor cannot use psychotherapy in his or her work. A psychologist mainly uses psychotherapy in their work. A counselor usually tackles the issue in a less in-depth manner as compared to a psychologist. A psychologist, they are more specialized in therapies, in dealing with people with mental conditions, and a counselor, they mostly deal with people who know they have a problem, and they will be able to overcome the problem without being dependent on the counselor. So a counselor and a psychologist, two different people in two different fields.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Any more questions? Okay, so if you do not have any question, we will end the topic. The class. Just I have a request to make, if possible. I have a very demanding schedule at work for the time being, and I am supposed to work on the 29th of April full day, malheureusement. My request is, if possible, for the session for the 29th, can we have it on the 22nd instead of the 29th, if possible? I'm sorry, I know this year I'm making a lot of rescheduling a lot of classes, but can you please think about this and tell me if instead of the 29th, if we can have the session on the 22nd instead of the 29th, please. And also next week we have a class, replacement class for, we were supposed to have a class on the 7th, no, sorry, the 8th of March, but unfortunately I was not in the country, so I didn't conduct the class. So we will have it next week. Do you want the class to be 8:30 to 10:30, or do you want it to be un peu plus tard?
It's better in the morning, ma'am.
In the morning, ça veut dire 8:30 to 10:30.
Yes.
Okay. And for the session on the 29th of April, please let me know if it's possible, if we can have it on the 22nd. Discuss among yourself. If it's not okay with you, then you see which day and date is more appropriate for you, and then you tell me.
Okay, we'll discuss it with the class rep and let you know.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next topic won't be that much of literature. It will be more about what are the do's and the don'ts in counseling. So hopefully it'll be more interesting. Please, I will post the assignment. Please make it a must. Go read on defense mechanism. Then we can next week we can further discuss about the assignment and the different defense mechanism that you've identified in the case study. Okay. So if you don't have any question, I will end the session. Thank you so much for today. And I'm sorry again for having rescheduled the classes. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
so
Have a great weekend. Bye.
thank you. Same to you. Bye bye.